In a devastating turn of events, Tropical Storm Crising swept across the northern and central regions of the Philippines this week, leaving a trail of destruction, grief, and uncertainty. The storm, which intensified rapidly over the Philippine Sea, made landfall late Tuesday night, unleashing torrential rains, violent winds, and widespread flooding that overwhelmed communities and infrastructure. According to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, NDRRMC, at least 12 people have been confirmed dead, while over 142,000 residents were forced to evacuate their homes and seek shelter in 537 emergency centers. The total number of individuals affected by the storm has surged past 1.4 million, with many still stranded in isolated villages due to impassable roads and collapsed bridges. The storm's fury was felt most acutely in the provinces of Cagayan, Isabela, and Aurora, where landslides buried homes and flash floods inundated entire barangays. In Barangay Calala, Antique, floodwaters rose to chest level within hours, trapping families inside their homes and prompting dramatic rescue operations by Coast Guard personnel using inflatable boats and helicopters. Initial damage assessments estimate that Crising caused over 562 million Cuban pesos, approximately $9.6 million in infrastructure losses. Roads were torn apart, power lines snapped, and communication towers toppled, plunging several municipalities into darkness and isolation. In Albay and Catanduanes, ports were shut down as 34 vessels and nearly 100 passengers were stranded due to dangerous sea conditions. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, PAGASA, reported that Crising reached peak wind speeds of 65 kilometers per hour, with gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour, before weakening slightly as it moved northwest toward the Babuyan Islands. However, the threat is far from over. A low-pressure area west of Babuyan has already developed into a new tropical depression named Emong, while another system in the northwestern Pacific Ocean shows a high probability of intensifying into a storm within the next 24 hours. Meteorologists warn that these systems could compound the damage already inflicted by Crising, especially in regions still reeling from the initial impact. In response to the unfolding disaster, 29 cities and municipalities have declared a state of emergency, enabling faster mobilization of resources and aid. Local governments have activated contingency plans, including the distribution of food packs, medical supplies, and temporary shelters. President Maria Leonor Santiago addressed the nation in a televised speech, expressing condolences to the victims and pledging full government support. "We will rebuild, we will recover, and we will stand together as one nation," she said, urging citizens to remain vigilant and cooperative with emergency directives. In Tuguegarao City, 38-year-old fisherman Ramon de la Cruz recounted the terrifying moment when his boat was capsized by surging waves. "I held onto a piece of wood for hours before the Coast Guard found me," he said, his voice trembling. "I thought I was going to die." Meanwhile, in San Andres, Catanduanes, 12-year-old Liza May and her family were rescued from their flooded home after spending the night on their roof. "The water came so fast. We didn't have time to grab anything," her mother said, clutching a donated blanket. Humanitarian organizations, including the Philippine Red Cross, UNICEF, and World Food Program, have mobilized to deliver aid to affected areas. Volunteers are distributing clean water, hygiene kits, and tarpaulins for temporary shelter. Medical teams are treating injuries and preventing outbreaks of waterborne diseases. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, has allocated 200 million Cuban pesos in emergency funds, while international partners such as Japan, Australia, and the United States have offered logistical support and disaster relief supplies. Experts say that Crising is a stark reminder of the Philippines' vulnerability to climate-induced disasters. With over 20 typhoons hitting the archipelago annually, the need for resilient infrastructure and proactive disaster planning has never been more urgent. Dr. Elena Ramos, a climate scientist at the University of the Philippines, emphasized the importance of early warning systems and community-based preparedness. We can't stop storms from forming, but we can reduce their impact through education, technology, and strong governance, she said. As the country braces for the potential arrival of tropical depression Emong, authorities continue to monitor weather patterns and coordinate evacuation plans. Residents in low-lying and coastal areas are advised to stay alert, follow official advisories, and prepare emergency kits. In a harrowing week for the Philippines, Typhoon Emong and Tropical Storm Dante have unleashed a devastating combination of wind, rain, and flooding across Luzon and surrounding regions. The twin weather systems, which formed almost simultaneously within the Philippine Area of Responsibility (PAR), have intensified the southwest monsoon, triggering widespread evacuations, infrastructure collapse, and a national state of emergency. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration (PAGASA) confirmed that Emong, locally known as Kome, rapidly intensified from a tropical depression into a Category 1 typhoon over the West Philippine Sea, reaching maximum sustained winds of 120 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 150 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, Dante, internationally named Francisco, remained a tropical storm with winds of 75 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 90 kilometers per hour, moving north-northwest toward Japan's Ryukyu Islands. Though Dante stayed far from land, its presence significantly enhanced the southwest monsoon, compounding the destructive impact of Emong across Luzon and nearby provinces. From July 22nd to July 24th, the combined influence of Emong and Dante brought intense to torrential rainfall exceeding 200 millimeters in provinces such as Zambales, Bataan, Pangasinan, and Occidental Mindoro. In Metro Manila, streets turned into rivers as floodwaters surged through residential neighborhoods, forcing thousands to flee their homes. In Dagupan City, Pangasinan, floodwaters reached waist-deep levels within hours, submerging vehicles and trapping residents in upper floors. Emergency responders deployed rubber boats and amphibious trucks to rescue stranded families, while power outages and communication blackouts hampered coordination efforts. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, NDRRMC, reported that over 312,000 people were affected by the storms, with more than 68,000 evacuated to temporary shelters across 47 provinces. In La Union, landslides triggered by saturated soil buried homes and blocked major highways, isolating communities and delaying relief efforts. The Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, deployed heavy equipment to clear debris, but progress was slow due to continuous rainfall and unstable terrain. The Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, issued a gale warning for the western seaboards of Luzon, with waves reaching up to 14 meters in Ilocos Sur and La Union, and 11 meters in Pangasinan. All fishing and passenger vessels were grounded, stranding over 1,200 travelers in ports across Batangas, Mindoro, and Palawan. Meanwhile, the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, CAAP, canceled more than 70 domestic and international flights, citing dangerous wind shear and poor visibility. Ninoy Aquino International Airport, NAIA, operated on limited capacity, with passengers advised to check flight status before heading to terminals. In San Fernando, La Union, 62-year-old farmer Pedro Alvarado described the moment Emong's winds tore through his village. The roof flew off like paper. My crops are gone. I don't know how we'll survive the next harvest, he said, standing beside the remnants of his home. In Taguitan, Ilocos Sur, 14-year-old Maricel Ramos and her siblings were rescued from their flooded house after spending the night clinging to rafters. We were so scared. The water kept rising, and we couldn't see anything, she said, wrapped in a donated blanket at an evacuation center. President Maria Leonor Santiago declared a national state of calamity, unlocking emergency funds and fast-tracking relief operations. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, allocated 300 million Cuban pesos for food packs, hygiene kits, and temporary shelters. International aid poured in from Japan, South Korea, and the United States, with UNICEF and the World Food Program deploying mobile clinics and water purification units to affected areas. Volunteers from the Philippine Red Cross worked around the clock, treating injuries and distributing supplies. Experts warn that the back-to-back formation of Emong and Dante is indicative of climate volatility in the region. Dr. Rafael Mendoza, a meteorologist at the University of the Philippines, noted that warmer sea temperatures and shifting wind patterns are fueling more frequent and intense storms. This is no longer an anomaly. It's the new normal, he said. We need to invest in resilient infrastructure, early warning systems, and community-based disaster preparedness.
Oh, parang dagat.